I'm paralyzed. We saw the Nightfall.
Night Will Fall.
Night Will Fall, which is the suffering people went through in the concentration camp in Germany.
Wait, can you wake up first?
What the hell was that? I mean...
Talk a little bit about what you saw.
My God. Oh. We saw the concentration camps in the mid-40s with the Nazis. You know, they captured the Jews, they obviously told them to come and stuff like that. And they put them in gas chambers.
Don't talk way too loud. Roommates are going to be...
I think, what is it? Hitler ordered 600 Jews every day to die?
No. That was just the chief at one of the camps ordered that.
Oh, you can't forgive things like that. I can't forget what I saw just now. The piles of skeletons just lying and people throwing... What they're gonna do? They slide them, and throw them on top of each other. That is so horrific. Seeing alive people, they were so thin, and their legs, the only thing they had, their bone, it was the skin. Oh my God! The mothers, the parents, they went there with the twin little kids, Just imagine. And the Germans taking them and inject them with bacteria, with diseases, to experiment. What they think they were, mice?
Okay, well, this movie, since you don't feel like telling anybody, and it's not useful for you to talk to anybody about it, it's actually a documentary about the original documentary filmmakers. I mean, the camera crews, the military camera crews from the Americans, the British, and the Russians who filmed the German prison camps at the liberation of them, and they were shocked by what they saw. And eventually they were getting so much footage, and it was being revealed the scale of the crimes committed when they were discovering just how many bodies there were. But not only that, how the Germans collected all their personal possessions of the prisoners, that they hired filmmakers, Sidney Bernstein and Alfred Hitchcock, to turn it into a documentary film they were going to show. But eventually it was canceled for two major reasons. One, America and England didn't want a lot of refugees. They didn't want to accept the prisoners who had been freed. They had no home now, a lot of them. They didn't want to go back to their original countries. Israel didn't exist yet as a country when a lot of them went to Palestine, and they were put in camps there too. So they didn't want to show this film because if civilians and regular audiences saw them, they would think that they have to help them, because if they see the suffering, they'll think we should welcome the refugees. So that's one thing. And by the way, it's something going on today too with the Syrian refugees. And also they didn't want to show it in Germany because Germany was heavily bombed, and they needed the German citizens' help and cooperation to rebuild Germany and help build a new government. And so they didn't want to shame the Germans with a film about this. And plus Germany was being divided between Russia and America and England, and so America and England really wanted the German people's support. So they canceled the film eventually, and Billy Wilder took some of the footage and made a shorter documentary about it, and it wasn't until recently that the original film that Alfred Hitchcock and Sidney Bernstein worked on was actually completed, which is not this film. Again, Night Will Fall is a documentary about that and about the experiences of the soldiers and some of the people they filmed who were in the prison camps, and those people were interviewed much later as well, decades later.
But did you see the hair, the teeth, the glasses, the whatever? It was piles, the shoes. Okay, I want to know why this happened.
We should first of all, we should see the actual documentary about it. But what was I thinking too? Judgment at Nuremberg. with Maximilian Schell and Judy Garland. Oh, Burt Lancaster, that's his name. But anyways, that's a great movie about the trial to prosecute one of the Germans who committed war crimes or was accused of committing war crimes. It's a long story, but there was a long history of anti-Semitism, of hating Jews, of blaming them for Germany's problems. Unfortunately, a lot of these dumbasses are still around, and a lot of them still, arguing, Jews and Arabs and stuff. They're ruining our white culture and everything. They're just idiots. And a lot of them are Donald Trump supporters, too, I'll tell you that.
So what they want to do, they want to wipe the dark race and leave the white race?
Yeah, they were convinced that Jews were criminals conspiring against Germany. That's how North Korea treats prisoners, too.
Just imagine if the whole world was white, how boring it will be.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah, black people have all the fun.
It will be so boring. Why this happened?
It's a
Why this suffer? We're talking about real human being here. Children, innocent kids, why this happened?
Well, that's not the point of this documentary exactly.
I understand. But I saw what I saw, okay? Why it happened. What kind of people kill and put these human beings in gas chambers? They put them in such a hunger, starvation.
Well, that's what happens when you make a country look very great, like it's the right thing to do to support the nation, support the leader, and punish criminals, supposed criminals, label them as thieves and traitors to the country.
It was kind of touched to see the liberation, to see them free. But my God, even if they were free, they have a pain forever.
Stop talking so loud. My roommates are in the house.
My grandparents told me what these Germans did. They're going from house to house and taking the food and forget the valuable things. We don't care. But they were taking the food from civilians. They were bombing villages, houses, civilian houses. Why they did that? My grandfather, and he was in Greece during the war, he had 3 professional fishing boats. He was fishing, bringing the fish out, and the Germans waiting there and grab the fish. Everything. So they didn't have to eat. So my grandfather took his family and they went to Jerusalem. We're not Jews, we're Greeks, but they went there to avoid the war and all these things because they have 6 kids. And the Germans open the door and they go there and take in the food, the bread. My father's mother told me she made a fresh bread one day and she was ready to feed, her family and everything. The Germans walked in and they grabbed everything. What kind of war is that?
To these Nazis and to modern Nazis and Nazi sympathizers, they basically believe your identity is your race. Like, that's your heritage. And so to them, if you don't support the white race first, before others, and if you don't take some pride in white history, then somehow you're a traitor to your race. You don't support them. And so therefore they view a lot of other races as inferior. They say there's just a difference with blacks, with Jews, with Arabs. You see that with Donald Trump. He attracts all these people who think Syrian refugees are all rapists and murderers and they all want to dominate their women and stuff, when in reality, most of them are victims of ISIS, which came about because of the invasion of Iraq and because of the Syrian government. It's such chaos there. They're escaping that, but what do? They see a few Syrians who are criminals and rapists, and they assume, therefore, they connect. It's the laziest connection with them.
What you're saying.
They lazily connect their dark skin, their faces, their language, the fact that they're from a foreign country, and assume, therefore, the rest of them must support rape and murder and stuff, when in reality, that's totally sensationalizing the actions of a few just to be able to have an excuse to hate other people. And that's how you get people saying other races are inferior. And therefore Germans blamed Jews for the failure of Germany after World War I, when Germany was so poor and they had to pay a ton of money in war reparations corporations, and Hitler was blaming an enemy, saying it was Jews. And there was a long history in Europe of people hating Jews. Christians, Catholics, Protestants basically coming up with programs to do all kinds of things, to torture Jews, convert them, and so Jews were looked at separately because they often kept within their own group, the Jews themselves. And so people look at Jews as wanting to destroy the white race and all this crap, and they say Jews want to induce suicidal self-loathing among whites, as if these white people are so terrified that some Jews mentioning that Jews are persecuted throughout history, that therefore the whole white race is going to collapse like it's this frail, delicate little flower.
What kind of stupid thing is he was thinking? And he was a leader, and a leader has to think like that, and just get rid of all this. I mean, we're talking children, old people.
Well, Hitler was probably insane, too. I mean, he was pretty insane.
This is beyond insane.
But let's talk about the film. This was powerful, powerful footage, because a lot of people doubt this or doubt the scale of it, or they say certain things to mitigate the blame of the Germans and the Nazis.
Oh my God! So the British went there to liberate them. I heard
and Americans
this story.
And Russians.
Americans and everything. After they were liberated, what they did to the Germans?
First of all, the Americans, at least I guess the British too, helped rebuild Germany, and obviously West Germany was an ally with America, and East Germany was controlled by the Soviet Union.
Right.
And America and England didn't want to welcome in the refugees. Basically the displaced people who were surviving the concentration camps. They didn't want to welcome them in. They said, we have enough of our own problems.
Yeah, I heard that.
So a couple of years later, Israel was created as its own country. But anyways, the whole thing was just insane. And that's part of the reason they didn't want to show this film. I mean, the original one that Hitchcock worked on, because they knew if Americans and British saw these films and saw the suffering of Jews and other people in the concentration camps, they would think we have to welcome these people. That's partly why they kept the footage. And then these idiot Holocaust mitigators, sympathizers, deniers, who say, oh, Germany was desperate. And of course, the dipshits are the biggest Donald Trump supporters out there, because Donald Trump, what does he say? Mexicans are this, rapists and murderers. So Muslims, we don't know who these Muslims are. Most of the victims of ISIS are Muslim.
He said about illegal immigration. That's all he was.
How do you think you get people to hate immigrants? First of all, it's very hard to legally immigrate here. There's only a certain amount of lottery tickets given for people to immigrate every year. And even if you have family here, or if you try and sponsor them to come here, it takes years, because there's such a wait. And so as a result, how do most of them get here? They get here because they're desperate to escape violence, rape, kidnapping, torture in Mexico. Let me talk. Because I know you're such a big Donald Trump fan. I know this is so wonderful man I shouldn't speak against.
I didn't say that.
Can you stop talking?
Yes.
So they're desperate to escape violence there, not just in Mexico, but in South and Central America, where America has destroyed so many governments, overthrown them, and put in dictators because we think they're going to be allies with us. And America tries to drive the drug war in Mexico to fight the drug cartels, and yet Americans buy by far the most drugs of any country that come from these countries. And so at the same time we want to shut down the drug cartels there, the drug cartels get more and more desperate and powerful because their leaders get killed, and all the other members of the cartels fight amongst each other for power. And they can't make as much money selling drugs, so what they do is they turn to kidnapping, rape, extortion to make money among regular people. They buy the police, they buy the local governments, they buy the military. And so as a result, Mexicans, Central Americans, South Americans are fleeing here as a result. Most of them hardest working people you ever meet. The vast majority are not criminals. See, you make it illegal with a hand wave by saying only a certain amount can come here. There's millions waiting. If you just made it easier, I mean, we looked at it the way you would look at moving from here for a job to like Virginia to Maryland, or Virginia to wherever, LA or California or something, it puts it in context. People move for work. We can do it in a sensible way. Instead, what's he say? He labels these millions of people as rapists, murderers, drug dealers, when in reality, who drives this policy that makes Mexico such a hellhole where tens of thousands of people are murdered, raped, killed each year? America does. And they think, oh, this means, oh, what, I hate America? No, it means we can be responsible for our policy instead of driving this. And then what's Donald Trump do? Does he look at the problem of American drug consumption? No. Does he look at the drug war? No. Does he look at America toppling governments in South America, Central America, causing chaos there where people run drugs through Mexico? No. What he does is look at desperate people who come here for work and say they're rapists and murderers and bringing drugs. That's how you get people to hate a whole nother race of people, by saying, look at them. They're different from us. They're worse than us, instead of actually taking responsibility to learn about the problem. Not taking guilt for it, but just taking the responsibility to say, I can face what our own country is doing and seeing, is there a better way? That's it. It just means, can I face what the consequences of our policies are, instead of just hiding from them like some self-loathing wimp, a coward who can't even face what their own country is doing. And it's not about my country like doing this. It's the fact that it's taking responsibility for acknowledging. That's all. Just acknowledging, wanting the truth out. Because there are worse things than welcoming Mexicans here. And that's being a coward who can't face the fact that horrible, horrible policies lead people to come here. People don't leave their country just on a whim because it's easy. They come here because they're desperate, and only if it's to save their lives and because they've had family members killed and kidnapped. And see, what they'll do is say, look at this Mexican criminal, look at that, oh, look at these criminals. And then they associate that with the fact, oh, they're illegal, that's why they're a criminal. And yet, you would look at any demographic, you could do that. Look at all white men over the age of 30. You could, if you just wanted to deport them, hey, you'd catch a bunch of criminals too. But they have the good sense not to do that, although their bad sense is they assume white people are better or somehow superior.
Okay, I can get into that. It's so complicated. You talk.
Well, thanks for interrupting me before that.
Well, I didn't interrupt you, but how many can you get here? Okay, maybe millions that will come here to stay. How much more?
Why don't you go there? Why don't you go there and look at the problem and blame them?
I don't blame anybody. I'm just saying, how much more can...
A lot. We have plenty of opportunities we can make if we stop being so destructive and restrictive and regressive and saying, well, there's nothing we can do. We can make opportunities anytime we want. Like, first of all, stop the ridiculous stop making drugs illegal. It doesn't stop people from doing drugs. What it makes is the cartels incredible. It makes them like their own countries that wage war.
I don't know. I don't know politics. I don't know these things, okay?
Well, you can agree with me. It doesn't sound good when, say, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 people in Mexico get killed every year. Who knows how many more raped, kidnapped just for money. Why? Because these drug dealers, they can't make money selling drugs like they used to. I'm not saying that's inherently good, but it works way better when we don't criminalize drugs among desperate people and then kill the leaders of the cartels and make these people who aren't even at least decent leaders fight amongst each other. And what do? They'll assume anyone is an enemy against them. They'll see somebody walking down the street at a time when, say, one of their friends was killed or whatever, and say, oh, you're probably a spy for the other cartel. Tell us what you know. Cut off your fingers, whatever, and then kill you.
Well, thank God I'm here legally.
Stop talking so loud.
I can't worry about...
But the difference between you being here legally and illegally is just a bureaucratic decision. It's just a stamp. It's just a signature. That's it. That's the difference that makes Mexicans legal and illegal here. And people don't get that. And see, the irony is refugees escape such horrible circumstances. You saw what the Jews here and the other concentration camp victims went through. About half the victims were Jews. The others were all kinds of different people. You saw what they had to try and escape and survive. And yet these idiotic people, these racists, people who, they're the self-loathing. Because they think, they don't want to face responsibility for acknowledging the consequences of their own policies that they support. They just want to see some dark people and blame them for what all other dark people do. If they were in these circumstances, they would be just as desperate to flee too, but they're not. They get to live here, they get to have security and wealth and everything. Instead, what they do is when they even see Mexicans who don't speak English or whatever the group they don't like, poor black people, they see Arabs, Muslims, they say, oh, we can't even deal with this, we can't deal with them, we can't take them in this country, it's too much. Well, what do you think they're escaping, and why is it you blame them for escaping instead of staying and fighting when, for instance, in Syria, it's not just ISIS and the government, it's Russia, it's al-Nusra, the Al-Qaeda's group. It's all kinds of factions fighting for power there. You think people can get together and fight 50 different militias while the government is bombing their neighborhood? It can't be done. So they're frightened and horrified. They're shrieking that the white race is going to be genocided if we let some Arabs here, or Mexicans, or black people, or whatever. But they can't even face the fact that these people are escaping something much more dire. They're not coming here to destroy the white race. But anyways, that's kind of what happened in Germany. Hitler was able to get people to think Jews are conspiring to destroy Germany.
Well, that is pathetic. Good God. Horrific. And
they were used as slave labor. The concentration victim camp, they weren't just there as prisoners sitting in cells all day. They were in barracks, and they would be expected to work all day on tiny amounts of food, laying railway line in the snow, in the heat, whatever, digging tunnels, laying electrical wire, and if they couldn't work, they were killed. And of course, eventually, many of them just wouldn't be able to work anyways.
Right.
Or because they would get so sick, or even people who could work were killed. It was just such insanity.
No medicine, no nothing.
I actually read Viktor Frankl. I was reading this book, Man's Search for Meaning. Great book. Rereading it, actually. I read it years ago. He was a doctor. He was a prisoner for years in camps, and he was able to get assigned a job as a doctor. He at least wanted to help people, even though he said he knew that would probably get him killed. People who took those jobs would get killed. The only medicine he had for people with typhoid was like 7 tablets of aspirin for like 30 people that was expected to last like 5 days. So all he could do is cut the tablet in half and give it to the most sick patients.
Aspirin. Well, aspirin knocked down the fever a little bit, that's it. Just watch it.
Yeah, Night Will Fall. I'm linking it to the description.
Yeah.
In the description, you can watch it free on this site. The volume is really low. It's hard to, even with my computer volume all the way up, you can't really hear it that well. I mean, we could hear it fine.
I hear,
but you have to be up close. There's also a YouTube link where you can rent the movie for $3.
Just watch it.
It's incredibly powerful and shocking. This is the second time I've seen it. It was shocking.
Oof, God, it was... oh my God, it was this horrific thing.
I noticed some things the second time. I missed the first time. Like you could see baby skeletons and children's skeletons.
If I was there, I just open little hole in the fence and the wire fence and let them go. You know. Oh my gosh, that was bad. That's really, really bad thing. What I'm talking bad, it was
not
just
so loud.
It was just horrific film.
It'll be nice when I move out. We can speak freely. I don't have to be quiet for my roommates.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's shocking.
My God.
So important, disturbing. Because this goes on around the world too. In North Korea, they have horrible concentration prison camps, slave labor camps.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
Going on right now, and they're secret. Like they don't tell anyone, but we can see them with satellites.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And so whenever they build a new one, we can see them with satellites.
So that Google can see it?
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you think the suffering is going on in the world up to this day, if we think about it every day, what's going on, we won't be able to eat.
And some of the Nazis are still being prosecuted today, even though they're like 90 years old, because they've been escaped. They escaped or were on the run all these years. A lot of them went to Argentina, but it's hard to prosecute them. And some of them, they're so sick now, it's hard to even take them to trial.
Can you imagine living in that camp, seeing dead people every day?
Yeah, and they never knew when the war would end or,
they
what would happen.
They knew nothing. It was like you're in the middle of the ocean and no land.
Mm-hmm.
You just...
Or never knew if they'd be assigned to another camp or reunited with their families. Or, even day to day, whether they would die or not. When they arrived at Auschwitz, Viktor Frankl said they had to line up and a German officer would just tap people on the shoulder and say, go left or go right. And I think the people on the right were all killed and most people were sent right because he looked at you and decided, could you work? you know, and if you went left, you were going to be a laborer. You were going to work for slave labor.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Just imagine the pain.
Well, it's hard to imagine, you know, civilized people could do that, because before that,
That's
Germany was a
trying to
civilized
say.
country. They had scientists, they had filmmakers, they had some. One of my
Right.
favorite filmmakers is from there, Fritz Lang, but he left before this happened because he started really
That's what I'm saying.
disliking what
Why
was
this
happening in
happened?
Germany.
Why?
Well, remember, Hitler came to power in 1933, and so he had 6 years before he invaded Poland to build up the military and get people's support. And Viktor Frankl said towards the last few days before, I guess the Russians came, I can't remember, to liberate them, the camp guards freed up the camp, and they were trying to be nice to the prisoners because they didn't want the prisoners to, you know, testify against them, basically to oppose them. They were trying to help them a little bit, some of them, but you saw in this, a lot of them, when the Russians were coming, or the Americans and British, they just killed as many prisoners as they could so there could be no witnesses, or they moved them to other camps away from the front.
How can they live after that, what they done? Oh, my God, this is awful. I don't know how I'm going to be able to not think about this for a while, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight. I probably have the light on.
Well,
Because I don't want to dream.
Well, you know, these assholes who say the Jews need to stop going on about it because they're paranoid that another Holocaust is going to happen and they should just get over it.
Get over it?
Well, they say that, but it's so important to remember this because these idiots are the ones who would try and incite some kind of race war or hatred against other races.
I mean, up to these days,
It's important to remember this stuff.
Who have
to
their
know it
grandparents,
shouldn't
their
happen.
parents
Mhm.
killed there. I mean, can you imagine mothers losing their kids in front of them? Oh my God! I'm grateful and thankful I wasn't alive at the time because I couldn't.
Yeah, you had no control over the rest of your life. You didn't know if you'd be killed in 1 day or in 3 years or in a concentration camp.
What happened to that camp now? In that place, they probably knocked it down.
No, you know, a lot of them are
What?
still standing as museums to what happened.
You mean
I don't know if a lot of them are, but I think
the
at least
Dachau?
Dachau, I guess, is, and I think Auschwitz is. I'm sure it is still standing, and people can go there as it's like a museum now.
I don't think I want to go.
Yeah, so people. Well, it's not a happy museum, so people never forget that.
You see the hair piling up, the shoes, the glasses. How can we? I don't think I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
But anyways, it's Night Will Fall. Very powerful documentary. Fascinating story of like what
Right.
happened and the parallels for today.
Just watch it. Just watch it. You know. And if you can continue watching it, okay, I can understand that. If I was watching by myself, I'd probably shut it off halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just... ooh. The only thing you see is death, death, death. Oh, my God. Oh, and these children and people, innocent people. We're talking women here. Little kids. Come on now. Oh, just watch it and make your own judgment. But you're not going to be happy watching this thing. But somebody has to see it to see what these people. Can you imagine? We can't see it. It's so painful by what they went through.